So let's get started on understanding the true nature of this powerful elven empire and why it matters so profoundly to the fate of Tamriel itself.
Right. So to truly grasp the Fourth Era Aldmeri Dominion with all its current ambitions and, let's be honest, radical goals, we need to go back, way back. We're talking about reaching into the very roots of Altmeri belief, their ancient worldview. So what does that foundational history tell us about their modern aspirations? What's the core of their identity?
That's a crucial point. To understand the present, we absolutely have to look to their past. The Altmer, or High Elves, they don't just think they're superior. They trace their lineage directly back to the Aldmer, the revered ancients, who, according to their own histories, first made landfall in the Somerset Isles.
The original elves, essentially. Yeah. Exactly. Our sources tell us their legendary High Lord Turinian first disembarked at Nineprow Landing on Auradon, claimed the island, swore a solemn blood oath never to leave it, and here's where it gets really foundational. They didn't just settle. They then used incredibly powerful magic to sculpt and, well, tend the very land itself.
Sculpt the land?
Yeah, literally willed cities like first hold into being before colonizing the rest of the Somerset Isles and even venturing to mainland Tamriel. It's a history deeply rooted in a sense of divine right, almost as if they see themselves as co-creators, not just inhabitants.
Wow.
This isn't just a proud lineage, it's a foundational belief that the world itself was better when they had a hand in its making. Which, hints at a deep desire to correct or remake it to their original purer design.
Okay, that's a big thought right there.
Right. This concept, this idea of reality being a flawed degradation from a perfect pre-mortal state, is the subtle, kind of terrifying undercurrent to all their actions. It's a true aha moment if you grasp it early on.
So they literally shaped the land to their liking, like divine architects. That's not just a powerful origin story. It's a profound statement of their perceived connection to creation itself. If they started from that baseline, how did that divine self-perception then translate into the nuts and bolts of their actual society? What did that perfect Altmeri society actually look like day to day? And how did it reinforce these beliefs?
Well, it translated into a meticulously stratified society, one designed to reflect their perceived cosmic order. At the very top were the wise, teachers, scholars, priests, basically the spiritual and intellectual elite.
Makes sense.
Below them, in descending order of prestige, you had the artists, then the princes, followed by warriors, landowners, merchants, and finally the workers.
A very rigid hierarchy.
Extremely. And at the very bottom, our sources tell us they had tamed beasts like the goblins native to Somerset, whom they openly enslaved.
Enslaved goblins. Okay.
This rigid social order, which placed them inherently above all others, combined with their, frankly, casual and brutal treatment of indigenous populations, powerfully illustrates their inherent belief in Elven, and specifically Altmer superiority. Their entire history, from their mythic origins of shaping the land with magic, reinforces this notion of being the chosen people, destined to not just rule, but to perfect the world around them.
So it's all self-affirming.
Exactly. It's a self-affirming narrative woven into the very fabric of their culture, a profound sense of destiny that, as we'll see, extends far beyond mere conquest. It hints at a deeper, almost cosmic ambition to not just rule Tamriel, but to reshape it, perhaps even reverse its very existence back to a purer state. That concept we mentioned, it underpins their entire long game.
It sounds pretty idyllic for them, a perfectly ordered society from their perspective. But come on, surely such a worldview couldn't have gone unchallenged, could it? Were there external threats to this perfect society, or were they truly isolated in their self-proclaimed perfection?
Oh, absolutely not. No way. Despite their self-proclaimed idyllic existence and their focus on internal purity, the Altmer were never free of conflict. Never. Our sources highlight frequent and often brutal attacks from the Slowed.
Ah, the Slowed. Necromantic slug people, right?
That's them. Grotesque, slug-like necromancers from Thraws who utilize their terrifying necromantic powers. We see this in harrowing events like the Sack of Skywatch in 1E 1301,
Oof.
where the Slowed devastated one of their vital port cities, basically burned it to the ground. And then there was the prolonged War of the Uvitshil between 1E 2911 and 1E 2917, where the Slowed once again threatened their shores with their unique brand of magical warfare.
So constant pressure.
Constant pressure. But maybe more persistently, and perhaps more intimately, they faced constant aggression from their envious cousins, the Maormer or Sea Elves.
Right, from Piandonia.
Exactly. The Maormer, dwelling in that mist-veiled archipelago far to the south, constantly attempted to wrest the Isles from Altmer control. They believed themselves to be the rightful heirs of Aldmeris, a claim that naturally put them in direct, eternal conflict with the Altmer.
So it's a family feud, essentially, but with high stakes.
A very high-stakes family feud. This constant sense of being besieged, even amidst their internal beliefs and supremacy, profoundly shaped their outlook and resilience. It fostered a deep-seated distrust of outsiders and a heightened sense of their own unique identity that they felt they had to protect at all costs.
So they've always had this sense of being besieged, even with their internal beliefs and supremacy. It's almost ironic, isn't it?
It really is.
But then they take this ancient sense of divine right and apply it to an era long after their supposed glory days. This is where the story truly shifts into their long game, as you put it. How did these foundational beliefs, forged in ancient times, become the blueprint for the powerful, aggressive dominions we see much later?
We see clear echoes of this expansionist and control-oriented spirit in earlier Aldmeri dominions. For instance, the Second Aldmeri Dominion, an alliance formed in an earlier era, which, ironically, saw them briefly ally with the very Maiormer they so frequently fought against.
Really, they allied with the Maiormer.
Briefly, yes. It showcased a pragmatic, if temporary, bending of their supremacist views when it suited a larger strategic goal. Shows they can be flexible when needed. However, the Second Dominion eventually met a decisive and utterly humiliating end. It was demolished by Tiber Septim himself.
Ah, Tiber Septim, the man who became Talos.
The very one. He notoriously used the legendary Numidium.
The brass god.
The brass god, exactly. A colossal reality-bending Dwemer construct to bring the Altmer homeland under his control in 2E 896. This wasn't just a military conquest, it was an existential affront. Imagine being conquered by what amounts to a walking, talking paradox machine, a literal god weapon wielded by a man.
Yeah, that's got to sting if you believe you're divinely superior.
Profoundly. This defeat, the conquering of the supposedly chosen people by a mortal, undoubtedly left a deep, festering scar on the Altmeri psyche. It fueled future aspirations for revenge and the reestablishment of their perceived rightful place as the absolute rulers of Tamriel. It set the stage for the resurgence we see in the Fourth Era.
It wasn't just a military defeat then.
Not at all. It was a cosmic ideological wound that demanded a response, a rectification of reality itself in their eyes.
That defeat at the hands of Tiber Septim and his brass god must have been an incredibly bitter pill to swallow, just simmering for centuries.
Absolutely, a deep collective wound.
So fast forward centuries to the Fourth Era, and suddenly the Thalmor rise from, well, relative obscurity to become the dominant power in the Somerset Isles and beyond. How did they manage this incredible ascent, particularly in the chaotic, devastated wake of the Oblivion Crisis? It seems like they just appeared out of nowhere to seize control.
Their rise truly capitalized on widespread devastation and uncertainty. The Oblivion Crisis in 433 was a cataclysmic event for all of Tamriel, a crisis that saw the very fabric of reality seemingly unravel.
Gates opening everywhere, Daedra pouring out.
Exactly. Our sources describe the air being torn asunder, Daedra spewing forth from Oblivion gates, causing unspeakable destruction across the continent. Cities burned, countless lives were lost, and the sheer terror of it fundamentally shook out the mortal races.
And for the Altmer.
For the Altmer, this was particularly traumatic. The very heart of their homeland, the vaunted crystal-like law tower, a symbol of their ancient glory and magical prowess, fell to the ground, crumbling.
Wow, a physical and symbolic blow.
Absolutely. Compounding this, Emperor Uriel Septim VII and his heirs were assassinated, plunging the empire into a desperate leadership vacuum. And it took the sacrifice of Martin Septim, the emperor's last son, to finally end the crisis.
A heroic sacrifice, but it left a void.
A massive void. It left all of Tamriel, but especially the Aldmeri lands, in a state of profound shock, vulnerability, and a desperate search for answers, for salvation.
That's a truly apocalyptic scenario. The world literally torn apart, their ancient symbols falling. So how did the Thalmor, this relatively unknown faction at the time, manage to turn this widespread disaster into their grand opportunity?
They exploited the confusion and despair with an act of, well, audacious brilliance and profound cynicism. They claimed credit for saving the Altmer people from extinction through deep and subtle magics.
They claimed they stopped the Daedra on Somerset.
That's what they said. One Altmer refugee, Lathanel of Sunhold, recounted how the Daedric horde on Somerset Isle vanished as suddenly as they came. And immediately, the Thalmor were there, dripping honeyed poison in our ears, as he put it.
So we just stepped into the vacuum and said, that was us.
Pretty much. They presented themselves not just as political leaders, but as saviors who delivered the Altmer from certain extinction. This vastly enhanced their influence among a desperate populace who needed someone to thank for ending their tribulations. And by claiming they could manipulate reality to such an extent, they were implicitly tapping into that ancient Altmer belief we discussed.
That they were the shapers, the perfectors.
Exactly. The idea that they were the original shapers and perfecters of the world, capable of fixing its flaws. It was a genius, albeit twisted, piece of psychological manipulation.
So they presented themselves as the solution to a crisis that had just fundamentally shaken their world, validating their ancient self-perception. But here's the real aha moment for me, tying back to what you said earlier.
Go on.
They didn't just say they saved them. They tapped into that ancient Altmer belief, that deep-seated fear of cosmic degradation. By claiming deep and subtle magic saved them, they were implicitly saying, we can fix reality. We can restore things to how they should be.
Precisely. Playing directly into their foundational myth.
It's a genius, albeit twisted, piece of psychological manipulation. But what happened to anyone who questioned this shiny new narrative? Surely not everyone bought it.
They suppressed dissent with extreme prejudice, a chilling efficiency that left no room for doubt. It wasn't just about silencing critics, it was about systematically dismantling their credibility and their very existence.
How so?
Take Reinendor, for instance. He made the fatal mistake of publicly questioning the Thalmor's narrative on Somerset Isle, not with violence, just with logical, factual arguments.
Who's asking questions?
Just asking questions. But the Thalmor, as our sources starkly state, were not such to allow something as trivial as the truth stand in their way. They didn't just exile him, they orchestrated a campaign to shift public opinion against him, tarnishing his reputation so thoroughly that by the time he was officially denounced and exiled, his credibility was already in tatters.
A complete character assassination.
A complete psychological demolition. It set a stark example for anyone else who dared to think for themselves. And then there's Lethnol Sunhold, the Altmer refugee we mentioned.
The one who tried to warn the Empire.
That's him. Fled the darkening shadow of the Thalmor, courageously tried to warn the Empire of their true sinister doings. He eventually met a violent end.
Assassinated.
Widely suspected to be at the hands of Thalmor assassins. A grim testament to their long reach and their ruthless determination to eliminate any inconvenient truths or dissenting voices.
So with their newfound power, consolidated through a mixture of manufactured heroism and ruthless purges, how did they then begin to expand their reach? Where did they look next, beyond Somerset?
Following their internal ascendancy, the Thalmor rapidly solidified their control. In 4E22, just 16 years after the Oblivion Crisis ended and they'd cemented their savior status, they overthrew the Altmeri monarchy in the Somerset Isles.
Got rid of the old rulers.
A symbolic and definitive move. They formally renamed the province to Alinor, marking their complete internal takeover and the official beginning of their absolute rule. Then, just a few years later, in 4E29, Valenwood.
Land of the Bosmer, the Wood Elves.
Right. The dense magical forests of the Bosmer were brought under their control, formally establishing what they proudly called the Third Aldmeri Dominion.
So, Somerset and Valenwood? That's quick work.
Swift and aggressive expansion, showcasing their ambition beyond just their homeland.
And elsewhere, the land of the Khajiit also came under their sway, right? The Khajiit have such a unique, almost mystical connection to the moons. How did the Thalmor manage to absorb a people so intrinsically linked to celestial bodies? Did they use force there too?
That's where it gets particularly interesting, and it highlights their manipulative genius. Elsewhere joined later, in 4E115. Here, the Elsewhere Confederacy voluntarily dissolved, and the ancient kingdoms of Anaquina and Palatine reformed, becoming client states of the Thalmor.
Voluntarily, after seeing what happened in Somerset.
Well, voluntarily might be putting it kindly. Our sources don't detail a specific Void Nights event where the twin moons Macer and Secunda supposedly disappeared.
Ah, the Void Nights. I've heard whispers of that. The moons vanished.
Supposedly. Or how the Thalmor directly caused or leveraged such an event. But the Khajiit's profound cultural and religious connection to those moons is undeniable. Their legends describe the moons constructing the lunar lattice, or Jakaje, which protects Mundus. Even Khajiit forms are determined by moon phases at birth.
So the moons disappearing would be catastrophic for them, existentially terrifying.
Unimaginable. The Thalmor absorbing a people so intrinsically linked to these celestial bodies, likely by claiming they restored the moons, further underscores their strategic consolidation of power. It wasn't just political and military, but ideological and even spiritual control over allied races.
Claiming credit again. It's their MO.
Seems to be. They even issued Thalmor handbills to guide interactions with their Bosmer and Khajiit allies, demonstrating a systematic approach to control and indoctrination rather than just brute force. It shows a deep understanding of how to weave themselves into the existing cultural fabric, twisting it to their will and solidifying their perceived divine mandate.
So it's clear they weren't just about direct conquest. They used a combination of overt displays of power and incredibly subtle, covert methods. That almost feels more insidious than outright warfare, doesn't it?
It does. It's pervasive.
What were some of the most chilling examples of these covert tactics beyond their borders, or even within their own newly expanded dominion?
Their internal methods for securing control were pervasive and utterly chilling. We see documented pogroms, Rightlia and Somerset Isle itself.
Pogroms. Against who?
They slaughtered those not of the blood of the Aldmer. A convenient excuse, as Lethanol observed, to purge dissidents, eliminate anyone with mixed heritage, and solidify their hold on what they considered the pure Altmeri bloodline.
Ethnic cleansing, basically.
Essentially, yes. Beyond the Aldmer homeland, their influence expanded through less direct but equally effective means. They harassed Altmer dissident refugees in cities like Sentinel and Balfiera in Hammerfell, showing their reach extended far beyond their borders to silence opposition.
Hunting down escapees.
Exactly. Preventing inconvenient truths from spreading. They actively funded insurgent groups across Tamriel, destabilizing regions, creating chaos that they could then exploit or step into as the solution.
Creating problems they can solve.
Classic tactic. And there was a particularly disturbing pattern of murders targeting individuals of mixed blood, or those with associations considered unclean by the Dominion.
So not just dissidents, but anyone deemed impure.
Anyone deemed impure. These weren't just random acts, they were calculated assassinations. These actions speak to a deep-seated, far-reaching intelligence and manipulation effort that went hand in hand with their military and political expansion.
It's a truly insidious approach to dominance, sowing fear and division from within. So we've seen how the Thalmor capitalized on chaos to consolidate immense political power, creating this vast new Aldmeri Dominion. But like we touched on earlier, their ambitions seem to go far beyond mere conquest or political dominance, don't they?
Oh, absolutely.
It feels like there's a deeper, more radical philosophical goal at play, something far more sinister than just ruling Tamriel.
You're absolutely right. This is where their radical ideology truly comes into focus, revealing the terrifying depths of their long-term vision. The Thalmor resurfaced not just as a political faction, but as a radical and xenophobic political movement that espoused the absolute supremacy of elves over all other Tamrielic peoples.
We saw that with the pogroms.
Exactly. But this isn't just about control. It's about reshaping the very fabric of Tamriel based on a belief in their inherent, almost divine superiority. At the core of their philosophy is the belief that Mundus, the mortal plane we inhabit, is a flawed creation. A degradation, even a prison, from a primordial immortal state.
The prison. The world is a prison.
To them, yes. The very act of creation by Lorkhan, the missing god, was a trick, a cosmic deception that resulted in a fallen, impure reality. Their ultimate aim, hinted at through their actions and beliefs, appears to be a reversal of this perceived degradation, to return to that earlier, purer, immortal state, perhaps even by unmaking creation itself. This is what many scholars refer to as the Great Unmaking.
Unmaking creation. That's not just political ambition. That's cosmic.
It's beyond political. It's ontological.
Absolute supremacy is a chilling phrase, and unmaking creation takes it to a whole new level. So what does this terrifying philosophical goal mean for everyone else in Tamriel? What's the logical conclusion of that kind of ideology for non-elves, for humans?
It means systematic oppression, and as our sources indicate regarding their activities in Skyrim, Thalmor justiciars openly expressing hostility towards Nords and advocating for a genocidal agenda.
Genocidal? They actually use that term.
The sources suggest that intent, yes. This is the logical, horrific extreme of their ideology of elven purity and supremacy, a desire to purify Tamriel by eliminating what they deem as inferior or unclean elements. This extends to mixed blood individuals or those with unclean associations, as seen in their disturbing pattern of murders.
So anyone not pure Altmer is an obstacle to their goal.
From their perspective, yes. Every non-elven race, particularly humans, represents a further degradation of the primal, perfect reality they seek to restore. So their dominance isn't merely political, It's a step toward what they believe is cosmic purification, the cleansing of a flawed reality.
Which brings us back to something specific. What does this all mean for one of the most contentious issues of the Fourth Era, the ban on Talos worship? Why is that such a central, non-negotiable target for the Thalmor? It seems almost more important to them than territory or political power sometimes.
That's the critical question that connects all these threads. Why Talos? Talos, in human belief, is the deified form of Tiber Septim, the same Tiber Septim who conquered them with the Numidium.
Right, the ultimate irony.
A mortal man who, through his unparalleled conquests and profound spiritual power, achieved apotheosis, that rare, incredible ascent to godhood, becoming the ninth aspect of the nine divines. He is widely revered as the king of earth and sky, dragon of the north, patron of warriors and adventurers. He represents the pinnacle of human potential, a mortal truly becoming a divine, a powerful, inspirational symbol for all of mankind.
He's a symbol of human potential, a mortal becoming a divine.
Yeah.
If I'm tracking this correctly, for the Thalmor,
Yeah.
it's not just that he's a human god.
No.
It's that his very existence as an ascended mortal completely undermines their core belief system, doesn't it?
Exactly.
If a man can achieve apotheosis, it completely upends the Altmeri notion of inherent elven superiority and the flawed nature of Mundus. That's the aha moment right there. He proves them wrong just by existing as a god.
Exactly. You've hit the nail right on the head. The Thalmor's core objection is precisely this. They explicitly deny that a man could achieve apotheosis. It's impossible in their worldview. This denial isn't just a religious disagreement. It strikes at the very heart of their entire belief system.
It has to.
If a mortal man can ascend to divinity, it fundamentally challenges the Altmeri notion of inherent elven superiority and the flawed nature of Mundus as a creation that degrades spiritual purity. To them, Talos is an anathema, a living, breathing contradiction to their worldview that only elves are truly connected to the divine or capable of true divinity. His existence proves that mortals can ascend within this degraded reality.
Which clashes directly with their goal of unmaking that reality.
Precisely. The Talos ban, therefore, isn't just a political demand to assert dominance, it's a profound ideological assertion. It's designed to undermine human spiritual identity, break their faith in their own potential, and reinforce the Thalmor's own worldview of absolute elven dominance. All as a step towards that ultimate goal of cosmic purification.
It's about discrediting a symbol that validates the potential of mortals in a world they wish to purify. And ultimately, perhaps even unmake.
That seems to be the terrifying endgame.
With this radical, frankly terrifying ideology solidified and their power base established throughout the Dominion, the stage was set for what felt like an inevitable clash with the Empire.
It was only a matter of time.
Let's talk about the Great War. A conflict that absolutely reshapes Tamriel. How did it all begin? What pushed the continent over the edge into open warfare?
The war ignited with a shocking act of aggression in 4E 171. The Thalmor, with supreme confidence and almost theatrical arrogance, delivered a series of audacious ultimatums to Emperor Titus Mede II.
Just dropped them on his doorstep.
Pretty much. Their demands were immense and, frankly, insulting. Disband the Blades.
The Emperor's spies and bodyguards.
Right. Outlaw Talos worship throughout the entire empire, a direct affront to human faith, as we discussed.
The core issue.
And cede large tracts of land in southern Hammerfell to the Dominion. These were not terms designed for negotiation. They were designed for absolute submission.
That sounds less like negotiation and more like a declaration of war disguised as an ultimatum. An impossible set of demands for any self-respecting emperor, especially after generations of imperial rule.
It was precisely that. Titus Mede II, despite the clear weakness of his empire at that point, defiantly rejected these terms. He had to.
And the Thalmor reaction.
Chilling swiftness and brutality, illustrating their ruthless nature and their absolute lack of hesitation. They immediately presented the emperor with the heads of every Blades agent who had been stationed in the Aldmeri Dominion.
They presented him with heads.
In a cart. A grim, undeniable message of their intent and capabilities. A promise of the bloodshed to come.
My God.
This horrific public act marked the immediate commencement of the Great War. A conflict that would plunge Tamriel into 4 years of bloody, devastating conflict, irrevocably altering its destiny.
Okay, so the war is officially on. Barbarically so. But what did that actually look like on the ground? How did the Dominion, with all their confidence and preparation, actually execute this invasion? What were those first devastating moves?
The Dominion's initial invasion was swift, coordinated, and utterly devastating. They poured their forces into the heart of Cyrodiil, rapidly capturing strategic cities like Leowyn and Shadinal
Before the Legion could react?
before the Imperial Legion could even mobilize an effective defense. Simultaneously, other Dominion armies under the command of Lord Nerefin invaded Hammerfell. They cleverly bypassed western Cyrodiil entirely, catching the Empire off balance and forcing their main legions to split their focus.
A classic pincer movement, almost.
In effect, yes. The Imperial legions in Hammerfell, caught by surprise, were hard-pressed, forced into a grueling retreat. The entire southern half of the province fell swiftly to the Dominion. In Cyrodiil, Imperial forces were driven back relentlessly. Eventually, only Bruma, to the north, and the Imperial City itself remained under Legion control.
So the Empire was truly on the back foot, struggling to contain this sweeping offensive. It sounds like they were on the ropes, teetering on the brink of collapse.
They were.
What happened in the Imperial City, the very heart of the Empire, as the Dominion closed in? That must have been desperate.
By 4E 174, the Imperial City came under a brutal siege by the relentless Dominion forces. It was a harrowing period. Despite reinforcements from Skyrim managing to break through the lines and join the defenders.
The Nords arrived.
Yes, but even with them, Emperor Titus Mede II made the difficult but ultimately shrewd strategic decision to break the siege and abandon the city.
Abandon the capital. Why?
To preserve his main army. He understood that holding the capital at all costs would lead to total annihilation and the complete collapse of the Empire. A strategic retreat, however painful.
A hard choice.
A brutal choice. Our sources reveal that the valiant 8th Legion bravely sacrificed itself, holding a crucial bridge to defend the Emperor's rear during this harrowing retreat, allowed the main force to escape certain destruction.
The 8th Legion. Heroes.
Absolutely. What followed, though, was the infamous sack of the Imperial City.
I've read about this. It was bad.
Horrific. The Imperial Palace was burned, the sacred White-Gold Tower looted for its treasures and artifacts, and countless atrocities were carried out by the vengeful elves against the innocent populace. A dark, shameful chapter in Imperial history, leaving a deep scar on the collective memory.
That's harrowing. Truly devastating to imagine. But if I recall correctly, there was a dramatic turn of fortunes, wasn't there? A moment that shifted the entire war at the Battle of the Red Ring. How did the Empire, after such a humiliating retreat, manage to reverse course?
Indeed. And what's fascinating here is how close the Dominion came to total victory, and how Titus Mede II, often underestimated, turned the tide through sheer strategic brilliance. During the winter of 4E 174-175, the Thalmor seemed to have believed the war in Cyrodiil was all but over. They even attempted negotiations with Titus II, likely sensing his army's exhaustion.
They thought they'd won.
They did. But the Emperor shrewdly encouraged their belief that he was preparing to surrender, all while secretly massing his forces from different directions to retake the city.
Playing possum.
Exactly. This became known as the Battle of the Red Wing, a strategic masterclass studied by Imperial tacticians for generations. Titus II divided his forces into three. General Decianus's Hammerfell legions, believed by the Dominion to still be bottled up in Hammerfell, were secretly hidden in the Colovian highlands near Shorel.
Icky.
Very. General Jonah's Nord legions, the fierce warriors from Skyrim, took up position near Shadinal, and the Emperor himself commanded the main assault on the Imperial City from the north, aiming to link up with Jonah's reinforcements and trap the Dominion forces.
A three-pronged surprise attack.
Precisely, aiming to trap Nerefin's forces within the Red Ring Road network around the city.
So what was the outcome of this incredibly complex, multi-pronged maneuver? Did it actually work as intended?
It was a decisive imperial victory, a testament to Titus II's strategic genius and the incredible bravery of his legions. The maneuver completely surprised the Dominion, throwing their forces into utter disarray, effectively encircling them.
The trap sprung.
Absolutely. Crucially, this victory prevented a horrific culling plan by the Thalmor general Nerefin.
A culling? What was that?
Apparently, he intended to sacrifice all of the Imperial City's inhabitants in some monstrous ritual upon his expected final victory.
Sacrifice everyone. Gods.
Horrifying. Furthermore, the Orb of Vermina, a powerful Daedric artifact which Nerefin had been using to spy on and manipulate Legion movements through nightmares and vision.
That Daedric artifact. He was using Daedric magic.
Seems so.
Yeah.
Essentially a powerful scrying tool of the Daedric Prince of Dreams. It was discovered and destroyed by the Imperial forces during the battle.
Blinding him.
Exactly. Blinded their intelligence efforts, further demoralized their leadership. The Dominion forces were crushed, Nerefin was captured, and the Imperial City was retaken. But, and this is key, at an immense cost.
So, despite such a significant victory, a turning point that saved the capital, and potentially thousands of lives from that culling, the Empire still signed a peace treaty, the White-Gold Concordat, which seemed incredibly harsh. Why agree to such punitive terms after a major win like that? It doesn't quite add up.
That's a crucial point, and it really highlights the Empire's desperate situation, even in victory. Our sources indicate that despite the triumph at the Red Ring, the Empire was utterly exhausted, completely spent.
The victory cost too much.
The 4 years of conflict had drained their resources, their manpower, everything to the breaking point. The victory, while strategic and vital, had come at an astronomical human and material cost. The Concordat was signed in 4E 175 not out of a position of strength, but to preserve the Empire itself. To prevent its complete collapse in a prolonged war it simply could no longer sustain.
Survival over pride.
That seems to be the calculation. The terms were indeed harsh and humiliating. It formally outlawed the worship of Talos throughout the Empire.
Giving the Thalmor their main ideological win.
Precisely. It ceded large tracts of southern Hammerfell to the Dominion, effectively abandoning an imperial province.
Just handed it over.
And it officially disbanded the Blades, the Emperor's elite intelligence and protective order, leaving the Empire blind and vulnerable moving forward.
Wow. That's a heavy price for peace.
It was a bitter pill, a deeply unpopular compromise, but seen by Titus II as absolutely necessary for the very survival of the Empire.
And how did Hammerfell, a province known for its fierce independence and martial prowess, react to being effectively given away in that treaty? That must have caused an uproar.
You're absolutely right. Uproar is an understatement. The Concordat immediately sparked outrage in Hammerfell. The Red Guards, fiercely independent and proud, refused its terms entirely. They wouldn't accept it.
They just said no.
They promptly seceded from the Empire, viewing the Concordat as a betrayal, and courageously continued to fight the Dominion on their own.
Took them on alone. Without the Empire.
Without the Empire. This led to 5 more years of grueling, bloody conflict, known as their Redguard Dominion War, a testament to their unwavering spirit. Ultimately, the Red Guards, in 4E 180, successfully forced the Dominion to sign the Second Treaty of Struss-Mackay, which stipulated the complete withdrawal of Aldmeri forces from Hammerfell.
They won. They actually pushed the Dominion out.
They did. A remarkable feat, achieved without Imperial aid. This led many Red Guards to believe, understandably, that the White-Gold Concordat was a mistake, that Titus II had perhaps overestimated the Thalmor's strength when he signed it.
Which must have fostered deep resentment.
Deep resentment towards the Empire that lingers to this day. It's a profound demonstration of Red Guard resilience, but also a stark indicator of the Empire's diminished authority and the growing internal divisions caused by the war and the peace.
The Great War might have ended with a treaty, technically, but it clearly left deep, festering scars across Tamriel, fundamentally altering the political landscape.
Absolutely. The peace was fragile at best.
So what does this mean for the Empire and the provinces going forward, particularly as we lead into the powder keg that ignites the events in Skyrim? What was the state of play?
Well, the White-Gold Concordat fundamentally weakened the Empire, impacting both its actual power and its internal cohesion in profound ways. Our sources highlight that the Empire was already struggling with the aftermath of the cataclysmic Oblivion Crisis, remember? That left them with a shattered capital and a defunct, assassinated leadership following Potentate Okado.
Right, they were vulnerable even before the war.
Exactly. The Concordat simply compounded these woes, forcing them to cede territory, abandon an ally in Hammerfell, and compromise their religious freedom with the Talos ban. Some astute observers, like the Altmeri refugee Lethenel of Sunhold we keep mentioning, even noted that the Empire seemed content to secure inconsequential corners of its vast holdings, rather than fully recognizing the deeper, rising Thalmor threat.
Kind of burying their head in the sand.
Or perhaps just overwhelmed. This left a weakened, fractured empire, struggling to assert its authority, and ripe for further manipulation by the very power it had just fought a devastating war against.
So it sounds like the Empire became a shadow of its former self, leaving this massive power vacuum that the Thalmor were all too eager to exploit. How pervasive did their influence actually become in this weakened state?
Exactly. The Thalmor's influence became pervasive, insidious, and frankly quite brazen. Thalmor justiciars.
Their religious police, basically.
Effectively, yes. They aggressively enforced the Talos ban across the Empire, particularly in Skyrim, where this worship had previously been largely ignored by the authorities. This sparked widespread resentment among the fiercely independent Nords.
Pouring salt in the wound.
Absolutely. But their reach went far beyond direct enforcement. Their intelligence and manipulation efforts were broad and chilling. They continued harassing Altmer dissident refugees, indicating a persistent global effort to stamp out any internal opposition or inconvenient truths. They were deeply involved in the political landscape of elsewhere, further solidifying control over their client states, ensuring their loyalty.
Keeping their allies in line.
They actively funded insurgent groups to sow chaos and division in other provinces, deliberately destabilizing regions that might pose a future threat. And perhaps most disturbingly, there was that clear pattern of murders targeting individuals of mixed blood, or those with associations deemed unclean by the Dominion, a quiet, systematic purge continuing their racial purity agenda.
Still carrying out those killings.
Seems so. In Skyrim, our sources specifically reveal that Thalmor agents openly expressed hostility toward Nords and even advocated for a genocidal agenda, operating with chilling impunity from their embassy in Hoffingar, Castle Dour, and Northwatch Keep.
Operating openly within Skyrim?
Their reach was both overt and covert, a true darkening shadow, as Lethanol described it, stretching across the continent.
So how did this volatile situation, this pervasive Thalmor influence, and particularly the deeply unpopular Talos ban, finally ignite the powder keg that was the Skyrim Civil War? What was the specific spark?
The immediate spark was the Markarth incident in 4E176, just a year after the Concordat was signed.
Markarth, what happened there?
After the Reachmen, a human tribe native to the Reach region seized control of the city of Markarth and declared independence from Skyrim.
Another rebellion.
Yes, Ulfric Stormcloak, a powerful and charismatic Nord Jarl known for his fiery rhetoric and strong stance on Nord traditions.
We know Ulfric.
He led a Nord militia to brutally crush the Reachmen uprising, retook the city. But, as a condition for his aid, Ulfric demanded a repeal of the Talos worship ban within the Reach.
He used the situation to push back on the ban.
Exactly. The local Jarl, desperate for aid, was forced to grant it. This immediate and very public violation of the White-Gold Concordat drew the swift and decisive attention of the Aldmeri Dominion.
Of course it did.
They immediately threatened the Empire with severe treaty violation if they weren't allowed to enforce the ban directly in Skyrim. The Empire, unwilling, perhaps unable, to risk another full-scale war with the Dominion so soon after the last one, conceded.
They backed down.
This effectively allowed the Thalmor to operate freely within Skyrim, sending in their justiciars to purge Talos worshippers, arrest people, drag them away.
Which must have enraged the Nords.
Enraged them. This combination, the deep-seated resentment over the Talos ban, the perceived imperial weakness in enforcing it, and Ulfric's provocative actions directly fueled the Stormcloak Rebellion, pushing a divided Skyrim into open civil war. Empire versus Stormcloaks.
And that was it. The ban, the imperial weakness, and Ulfric's actions directly fueling the Stormcloak Rebellion. That leads to a fascinating and frankly disturbing question. Why would the Thalmor allow such a rebellion to fester, even seemingly benefit from it? Instead of just putting it down decisively, they have the power. Why not just crush the Stormcloaks or prop up the Empire more strongly?
That's a profound strategic insight, and it's something internal documents within the Dominion actually confirm. This wasn't an accident.
They wanted the Civil War.
Information available to important figures within both the Dominion and the Empire indicates that the Thalmor actively exploited the Civil War. They saw it as a strategic means to weaken both the Empire and Skyrim.
Keep them fighting each other, bleed them both dry.
Precisely. Their goal was to ensure neither power could effectively oppose the Dominion in the future. Maintain a divided and vulnerable Tamriel ripe for their eventual next move. A prolonged civil war means constant draining of resources, manpower, and morale for both sides. It prevents any consolidated opposition to their ultimate agenda. Let the humans kill each other off.
That's chillingly pragmatic.
It is. What's fascinating here, though, is a slight curveball. While the remnants of the Blades in Skyrim initially blamed the Thalmor for the sudden and terrifying return of the dragons.
Which happened right around the same time, adding to the chaos.
Exactly. The last Dragonborn's infiltration of the Thalmor embassy actually revealed that the Thalmor themselves were in the dark about the dragons.
They didn't know about Alduin's return.
Apparently not. It demonstrates that even their vast intelligence network had limits. The dragons were an unforeseen, chaotic variable in their grand, meticulous strategy.
So even the master planners can be surprised.
It shows they are capable of adapting to unexpected developments while still maintaining their long-term goals. They didn't cause the dragons, but they certainly weren't unhappy about the extra chaos.
So they weren't behind the dragons. but they were definitely benefiting from the chaos. What other actions were Thalmor agents undertaking during this period in Skyrim or elsewhere that show their deeper strategic goals beyond just maintaining the civil war? It feels like there's always something else brewing with them.
There absolutely is. They never just focus on one thing. We see their long-term strategic interests in other actions, showcasing their multifaceted approach to influence and control. A particularly telling example is a Thalmor agent named Encano.
At the College of Winterhold.
That's the one. He had subtly inserted himself as an advisor to the Archmage of the College of Winterhold, a prominent magical institution. He then attempted to secure the powerful staff of Magnus.
The Eye of Magnus incident.
Right.
An artifact of immense magical potential, capable of siphoning power and potentially devastating a realm. This indicates their keen interest in acquiring and controlling potent magical artifacts and influencing magical institutions, extending their power far beyond direct military conflict.
Seeking magical power, not just political, maybe ties into that unmaking idea. It certainly could. It suggests a desire to control or harness powerful magical forces for their own, possibly cosmic, ends. Furthermore, we have reports of Thalmor crews landing on Solstheim.
The island near Morrowind.
Yes, with specific orders to retrieve Stalrim weapons. Stalrim is that rare, magically imbued enchanted ice unique to that island.
Why would they want Stalrim?
Good question. It shows their persistent focus on strategic resources across Tamriel, ensuring that key assets, whether magical like the Eye or Magnus, or material like Stalrim, do not fall into hostile hands, or perhaps are acquired for their own future plans.
Plans for the next war.
The inevitable Second War. They are playing a very long game indeed, meticulously gathering power, knowledge, resources, and sowing discord wherever they can.
Looking at all of this, the ancient beliefs driving them, the opportunistic rise from chaos, the brutal Great War, the fractured peace, and the ongoing manipulation in Skyrim and elsewhere, the Great War's consequences are clearly still unfolding, like a slow-burning fuse.
Definitely not over.
What does the future hold for Tamriel under this pervasive, darkening shadow of the Aldmeri Dominion? Where is this all heading?
Our sources, both Imperial and Dominion, interestingly, are surprisingly aligned on this point. The current peace cannot last forever. It's just a pause.
A Cold War.
Essentially, yes. The Thalmor are renowned for taking the long view, demonstrating immense patience, meticulous planning, and strategic foresight. Many within both the Dominion and the Empire believe they are actively preparing for a second war, viewing this period of peace as merely an intermission, a time to rebuild and consolidate before the next push.
Round 2.
Round 2. The ongoing threat of the Thalmor, plotting, watching, waiting, looms large over Tamriel, a silent, pervasive menace. The continued division between Hammerfell, which achieved its hard-won independence from both the Dominion and the Empire, and the weakened, internally fractured Empire, well, it dims any hope to stem the tide of Thalmor rule over all of Tamriel.
Division makes them weaker.
Significantly. The stage is undoubtedly set for another, possibly even more brutal conflict. But the outcome remains profoundly uncertain, especially with the Empire so divided and isolated. The very fabric of Tamriel, as the Thalmor believe it to be, is in their crosshairs.
So what does this all mean for you, our listener, contemplating the fate of Tamriel? Hashtag outro.
This entire deep dive, looking at their history, their beliefs, their actions, it brings us to a crucial, provocative thought for you to mull over. If the very foundations of reality, as understood by some of these core Altmeri beliefs, are seen as a degradation, a flawed creation that inherently lessens their pure primordial state, what would an unmaking truly entail for a world like Tamriel?
Right. What does that actually mean?
And how much of the ongoing conflict, the political maneuverings, the obsession with the Talos ban, even the genocidal agenda, we've seen hints of how much of that is merely a means to a far more terrifying, existential, philosophical end than just mere dominion over mortals.
It really makes you wonder about the true stakes of this conflict, doesn't it? The sheer audacity and scope of their long-term vision makes the current political landscape, the Civil War, everything seem like just a prelude to something far, far grander and more terrifying.
The pieces on a much larger board.
Exactly. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the Fourth Era Aldmeri Dominion. We hope this has given you a fresh perspective and much to consider about the forces shaping Tamriel's destiny.